That is Dimmu Borgir yet again from their album Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, a little ditty known as In Death's Embrace. This is Hexes and Soldiers episode number 38. My name is Jason. Welcome back, everybody. It has been weeks since I've talked to you guys, and let me tell you, it feels like weeks. All kinds of stuff to cover. Not really sure where to begin, so I'll do a random roll to determine where to begin, and based on that, I'll start with some peripheral preliminary stuff and say that yay, hockey is back. The Blues are suffering through some injuries and finding ways to win, but it isn't looking pretty. At the end of the day, though, I guess the W is all that matters. I've won five in a row, in fact, and I know you all are just as elated as I am to hear this. But a lot of hockey to go yet, and the season is still young, so we shall see. Had a good Halloween. I hope you guys did as well. Had a last minute costume that I threw together. Wasn't sure I was going to dress up and always look forward to dressing up. Halloween being one of my favorite holidays, not just for the candy, but for all the scary costumes. Being as I worked for the U.S. Postal Service, I thought I would put that to use and threw together my old uniform, tore it up, bloodied it up, and went, for lack of a better term, postal and carried around a bloody claw hammer all around downtown New Orleans. Got a few strange looks, got a few people that said they dug what I was doing and wanted pictures, but it was fun, and my esteemed associate dressed up as Laura Palmer. If any of you know who that is, that should take you way back to the show Twin Peaks. Of course, Laura Palmer is the dead girl that the show pivots around. She dressed herself as a dead girl, wrapped herself in plastic wrap, and that was that. So we were a hell of a sight to say the least. Um, Cold Combat expansion pack was released midnight, Halloween night. A few sales there, and I appreciate that. Also, a few comps that are going to be shipped out. Some have already shipped out, but I'm getting those out about as fast as I can. For those of you that have yet to look into it, I encourage you to do so. That would be Platoon Leader, the base game, and Cold Combat, the first expansion pack for Platoon Leader, and you can find all relevant, pertinent information related to that on Board Game Geek. What else? Also considering a new Hexes and Soldiers games page, um, rather H&S games page. I'm not sure yet if that's necessarily needed, but may yet do that and just consolidate everything that is related to the Platoon Leader and Cold Combat Arena to one single location. More on that as it comes. Also, if you are not already aware, it is now it's past the 1 year anniversary of Hexes and Soldiers, which, way back when, October 30th, 2013, I believe. I started this whole endeavor, and it's been interesting to say the least. I'm glad I've done it, and I'm glad I'm doing it. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, I can't say that every episode has been a breathtaking or has had you on the edge of your seat, but if I've managed to entertain you at least a little bit, then it's all been worth it. And I think I stated on Board Game Geek that I would smear cake icing on myself and break dance on mounted ASL map boards by way of celebration with video footage forthcoming. Well, that's still forthcoming, and just a hint, I wouldn't hold your breath. All kinds of news, but I'm not sure if I'll start the news or take a different turn. I think I'll take a different turn and jump right into Fury. So here will be some spoilers if you haven't yet seen the movie Fury. Fast forward through this segment and come back to it later, or if you think you can suffer through some spoilers, then stick around, or if you've already seen it, obviously. But finally broke down and saw it, and it's not that I didn't want to. I've known about this movie months in advance, and I have been excited with the utmost anticipation. Seemed like the thing would never get released. Well, it finally did, and you would have thought I would seen it on opening night, but didn't happen that way. Um, Not because I didn't want to. In fact, I think it was about a week and a half before I was able to see it. One of those things where I kept telling my girlfriend, I'd say, "Gotta go see Fury." No, no, go see it tomorrow. We got this thing to do. Okay. Well, it kept being tomorrow and kept being tomorrow, and I thought, I'm not doing what I usually do with movies that I want to see in theater. Wait until they're no longer there, and you got to see this on the big screen. There's certain things you can watch on a small monitor or your little flat screen, but certain things you got to see on the big screen, and this is one of them. Glad I did. It lives up to its name in so much as it is an action movie. Entertainment, entertainment value is high, and then you get into all the stickler, particular, I don't know, odds and ends, realism, etc., etc. It's the same with war games. How realistic, etc. And I'll get into that in a second. But the movie starts, and my girlfriend went with me. And I told her, I said, I know how you feel about war stuff. I know how you feel about war games. Uh, Virtually, she has no feelings at all regarding this stuff. Only puts up with it because I like it. So I thought, she's going to end up going to this thing with me and hemming and hawing through it and sighing, and I can just feel her rolling her eyes through the whole thing. So I thought, I told her, I said, if that's how it's going to be, please stay home. I want 2 hours of sheer selfish enjoyment, and I don't want it to be interrupted and brought back to reality because I'm reminded that you don't enjoy this stuff. And I said all this as nicely as I could. So she says, no, I'll go with you. And movie starts right off the bat. Well, I shouldn't say right off the bat. After 15 or so trailers for other movies. I mean, my God, trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer, and then some weird. I don't know what they are. Little red blood droplets. They look like trying to sell us sodas and refreshments, which I had already had, so I thought that was a little odd. Made it through all that stuff. Get to the movie, and it starts off with Brad Pitt leaping forth from the tank with a knife and attacking a lone German soldier on a horse, slitting his throat, and that's our introduction to the movie. One part of me says, wow, that's awesome, it's going to be a ride. The other part of me says, oh Lord, it's going to be a comic book. It's not going to be realistic. It's going to be kind of, I don't know, man orgy 300 esque bloodbath of gore and gratuitous violence, which, in its own right is good as well. There's a place for that. But I wanted this to be just right. I wanted this to be special. I didn't want it to be an exploitative World War II type thing. So once the beginning passed, I watched Brad Pitt leap from his tank. I was hooked, but I was worried. Moving along, it seems to balance out. We get to the uh, area where they're getting ready to move out, and we realize that Brad Pitt isn't this machine. He kneels down and has a moment of, I guess, tension release, and we get introduced to the crew, which is your typical cliche. You've got your knucklehead, not very bright person, your quiet, overly sensitive type, which I would call Shia LaBeouf. That, of course, Brad Pitt, being known as War Daddy, well, that's basically describes him to a T, War Daddy. And they get a new guy because they lost somebody. New guy is again a cliche. It reminded me of the dude from Saving Private Ryan, who was the typist. In fact, this guy was also a typist, and I didn't know much about much. Little to no combat experience. This is the new recruit that gets thrown into the tank, and he has the introductory task of cleaning out blood and brains and whatever else has become of his the person that he is replacing, and we watch his reaction to that, which is your typical puking scene. And then they move out, get to know the crew a little bit better. We have a couple little scenes action wise, but then it gets to a part where War Daddy, i.e., Brad Pitt, realizes that this guy, that is to say, the new guy who's pretty much a raw recruit, is going to probably get him killed unless he gets over his whatever it is, his fear, his reluctance, his morality when it comes to killing the enemy. And he basically finds a German who is left over after a small battle. They get this guy, and Brad Pitt ends up pretty much cuddling the raw recruit. I can't forget his name. I'm sorry to keep calling him that. Puts his hand around his and basically shoots the guy. So, in a roundabout way, vicariously, this raw recruit, I guess you could say, gets his first kill. He's irritated with War Daddy for having him do this. It was an odd scene because you have all these Americans standing around watching this. I'm not sure how I felt about that. I don't know. I'm not going to throw out the term realism because it's kind of neither here nor there for this particular scene, but it almost kind of portrays the troops in an odd light. I don't know how to describe it, but anyway, interesting scene. I don't. You got to do what you got to do, and if Brad Pitt feels like this guy can is going to cost him the life of one or more of his crew members or even himself, you do what you got to do. He's out there to kill them, which is what he tries to explain to him. This guy is here to kill you. You're here to kill this guy. What's the problem? Get over it. Move on. Then we get to and I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Again, I wanted to get to this earlier and talk about it, but some time has passed since I've seen it, so I'm only remembering key scenes. I'm not sure if there's another battle or not. But we get to another key scene in which um, Brad Pitt and the new recruit get to this town and they go inside a house and meet this older woman and her daughter, I guess, perhaps, or sister, maybe. They end up having breakfast, and new guy, I guess well, it's not even implied. It does happen. The younger girl and the new recruit end up having intimate relations, for lack of a better term. And it's all pretty low key and nice. And War Daddy starts reminiscing, I guess, waxing nostalgic for home and the way things were. Decides he's going to have himself a right nice breakfast and enjoy it. Meanwhile, the other tank crew members locate them and proceed to try and disrupt or interrupt War Daddy and the new recruits' dinner. And I'm not really sure why they felt the need to do this. I guess they felt left out, being a team, and all this stuff is going on, and they're doing whatever, and then they stumble upon this uh, dinner, or I guess breakfast, that's taking place. But I don't know if it's so much they felt left out as I think they saw War Daddy um, on vacation, so to speak. On vacation in so much as he's remembering how things were. He's emotionally and even intellectually removed himself from where he is currently at. And I think they wanted to, for whatever reason, bring him back to where he was, which I guess describes the whole scene in which they're trying to remind him, hey, don't forget where you're coming from. Remember all the wounded horses that we had to kill back in the day. And I guess they'd been together since Africa. And it's an interesting scene because, again, these guys are trying to bring him back to where he's at. And they don't want him to forget where he's coming from. And I don't know that there's really any risk of that. But for some reason, I sense they felt abandoned, even if only momentarily. And the other odd thing is, War Daddy can completely shut these dudes down. They're doing their best to disrupt his dinner, and he says, "You're not going to interrupt my, breakfast." He says, "You're not going to interrupt it. I'm going to have this nice breakfast, whether you try and screw it up or not." And he does eventually stand up and put the kibosh on him, but it seems like he could have done more, or could he? I mean, perhaps he realizes he only has so much control over these guys, only to an extent. And if he crosses that boundary, uh, it's going to become visible. It's going to become even more apparent that he doesn't quite have the control that he perhaps wants them to think he has, and he knows his limitations in that respect. Either way, That scene's interesting, and they leave the house. They go on their merry way, and then the house blows up from some artillery attack that the Germans have called in. And the girl that the new recruit had met and had relations with, he finds dead in the rubble, and he's pissed off about this. And the other tank crewman says, fine, be mad, vent it, and vent it at the Germans, vent it at the enemy. So moving right along, we cut to another battle scene eventually, and this is probably my favorite part of the movie. This battle scene, it's realistic, it's tense. I didn't have really any problems with it other than one minor thing, and I'll get to that in a second. But basically, there's this German something out there that has spooked the previous attempts to move through that area. Then comes down to War Daddy's tank and three other tanks to move in there, see what's up, clear it out. So you've got four tanks moving in, and as it turns out, this thing that spooked the previous um, attempts is a German Tiger tank. And actually, I read about this. This is the last surviving functional German Tiger tank in existence. This thing is real, it's vintage, and it actually runs. They use that for this scene. Four tanks start coming at it, and long story short, three of them get knocked out until the very end, in which War Daddy's tank is just about within shouting distance of the other tank. You could probably hit it with a stick, circling around each other, trying to catch the side or the rear because they know they can't knock it out from the front, and finally do so, but at the cost of three other tanks. And that, I found that pretty realistic. That was about the ratio of when it came to these battles. And the only other problem I guess I really had with that would be the gun that was on that Sherman. Technically, should have probably been able to take that Tiger out from the front. Now, I'm not positive on this, but that looked like a pretty decent gun on it. Either way, a great scene. And then the whole movie culminates towards the end. And the end is such that there's a crossroads that needs to be taken, and it's up to War Daddy and I guess a number of other people to accomplish this. But it ends up becoming a War Daddy's problem, and blows a track on a mine on the way there, pretty much while he's there, which renders the tank useless as far as mobility. Turret still moves. They've got plenty of ammunition. Um, so they're there. What happens is I don't know if it's a battalion of SS, start marching down the road, singing some sort of SS song. I don't know how I felt about that. I guess they would have been pumped up, perhaps. Anyway, you've got a battalion of SS coming. This isn't, I don't think, Volksgrenadier. This is SS. Marching down the road towards the tank, and War Daddy decides, I'm going to make a stand. I'm staying here. The other guys want to bug out. They want to split. They don't want to stay and fight because they know what's going to happen if they do. So War Daddy makes his pledge that he's going to stay there and fight. And then the new recruit says, well, I'll stay here with you. And then the rest of the guys decide, okay, well, we'll stay here with you. And I found that a little hard to believe. If they would have left and went back to HQ and said, hey, there's a whole battalion of SS. We lost our tanks that were accompanying us. It was just us. We blew a tread. Sorry. What's the worst that could happen? They would have said, okay, we'll send backup or whatever. They would have said, fine, we'll dump some artillery in there or have an airstrike. So here's where the realism gets lost. The lone tank last stand thing, sure, it's motivating and it is I guess uplifting to an extent. Here is these poor guys against a whole battalion. They're going to take a heroic stand. And here's where the comic book element for me again comes in, which I guess ties in with the beginning. But anyway, get the Germans. They pretend the guys in the tank pretend like it's a blown out tank from a previous battle. Germans come up on the tank and are basically ambushed by the tank. Now here's another problem, and it's not just with this movie, and I don't mean to be Mr. Complainer, but it's a problem. Thus begins the mad scurrying, like you turned a light on and cockroaches are running left and right all over each other, of Germans continuously, pretty much throughout the entire duration of this battle. I don't know how many times I saw Germans run repeatedly across an open road and get shot over and over and over and over. It was ridiculous, and just the machine guns blaring from the tank at all these Germans that are repeatedly trying to assault the tank. Honestly, I think that the Germans would have pulled back, maybe sent in a squad or even a team to sneak up around the side of the tank. There was cover to do so around behind it, taking it out with a Panzerfaust or two, which they had. The I don't know what the hell was going on with again the mad scurrying of the masses of troops around the tank, not even necessarily coming at it initially, running around it and getting shot up one by one. The tank crewmen get wasted, and finally you're left with War Daddy and the new recruit, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. Eventually, even War Daddy gets shot and killed, uh, all while the Germans are still trying to attack the tank and failing. Until finally, the new recruit escapes through the bottom hatch of the tank and hangs out hiding underneath. Um, Germans are finally able to overrun the tank, and you get one last scene with a guy shining a flashlight underneath the tank to see if any survivors are there. And in fact, he sees, I guess I wouldn't call him a new recruit anymore at this point, but the replacement. And you think, well, this is it. And I guess he has a moment of whatever and lets the guy live, which I thought was a cool twist. And then you pull out, the camera pans away from the tank, you head upwards looking down. So you slowly see the masses of German troops, the bodies that have piled up around the tank, and it is just unbelievable. And literally, it is unbelievable. But it's an intense scene. It's a nice scene. I didn't buy it, but it was entertaining, and I guess that's the whole purpose of this movie is entertainment value. And I wonder if that ending had always been intended for that movie. I would be curious to know if there was a variation of a theme or if it was even completely different. Anyway, that's the movie Fury. I got to see it. I liked it. Would I recommend you see it? Definitely, I recommend you see it. Make sure you put your tongue in your cheek for the very beginning and the duration of the end. Everything in between, pretty darn interesting, pretty darn realistic, and I don't know. I give it a minus, B plus, probably B plus. There's not a lot of contemporary decent war movies out there. I think, to be honest with you, Band of Brothers was probably the last thing, quality-wise, that I would lump this in with. And then before that, Saving Private Ryan. I guess the Pacific, that series, was decent, but honestly, not a lot of these things out there, and glad this came about. I hope this doesn't spark a whole bunch of wannabe copycat movies that are just junk. I'm sure it will. But that's Fury, and enough about that. And I thought I would do a whole section on this show of war movies as they relate to war games, but I could get lost and drown in something like that. I mean, the boundaries are endless. I don't know that there are even any boundaries to do that. So I will opt to do something else. That brings us to the news after that long tirade. But the news, ASL Action Pack 10 is out. Yay for that. Big ASL fan, if you didn't know. Ha ha. MMP Day of Days, which I have on pre-order, is hopefully making its rounds so that it will come out soon. Don't typically do pre-ordering, but have done so of late. That would be ASL Action Pack 10. Also, the Hunters, which is supposed to come out this month, is continuously getting pushed back, but we'll see. And also, like I said, MMP Day of Days. Can't wait for that. That is going to be awesome, for lack of a better term. What else? Rumor has it the Hecapelle is going through proofing. I'm not really sure how this rumor got started. Somebody saw a post somewhere, and it was, I think, a rules page um, for Hecapale, and then something along the lines of let the proofing begin by way of MMP. So we'll see about that. And it was almost guaranteed to be released this year. Don't know if that's going to happen now. I tell you what, if they were to put Hakapale on pre-order for Christmas, that would be a one hell of a Christmas. Compass Games, Compass Games was founded back in 2004, which makes it 10 years old, maybe 11 now that we're going on 2015, but a relatively new, actually, in the grand scheme of things, game company, and they've stuck around, done a few good things. Well, they have a new website, and they're offering certain games at either 15, 30, or even up to 40% off, so take a look at that. And then they have Enemy Action Ardennes, which is the first in a series of card-driven war games on pivotal operations and campaigns in World War II, from John Butterfield, designer of RAF, D-Day at Omaha Beach, and Ambush, and Hell's Highway. Each game in the series allows for play by two players or one player, playing either side in the conflict, and Enemy Action delivers fun, tense wargaming with a focus on command and capabilities. I can't remember if I've already covered this or not. Forgive me if I have. But it also says low complexity with constant decision points for both sides, two-player competition, solitaire play of either side with an innovative system governing enemy command and tactics, card-driven impulse system with multi-purpose cards that can be played to activate formations, implement command events, or gain tactical advantages in command. Diceless and chartless combat system. Players draw combat chits that build a narrative of each combat. Portrays the German offensive against the Western Allies in December of 44. Battle of the Bulge. Each player controls the German or Allied side. Playing solo, the game system controls the other side. Let's see. Got 3 maps, each portraying the entire Ardennes battlefield. One for the two-player game, one for the Allied solo play, and one for German solo. You get some cards, some counters, some player aid cards, 3 rule books, one for each game. And regarding this, it says Compass Game says it's occupying nearly all of their time at the moment, and has done so for the last few months. Actually, they have one rules booklet about 90% complete, and they give a rundown on where they're at. Map. The artwork is done. It just needs to be printed. You got the box and the lid. The artwork's done. Needs to be printed and formed into boxes. I wonder who gets the job of doing that, forming the war games into boxes. Well, I tell you what, if MMP would pay me to form their boxes for them, I'd move up there and do that. Then find something on the side to supplement my boxing. Anyway, this is one of the last components to be manufactured due to space considerations. Then they talk about card decks and charts and tables, booklets. Bottom line is best guess is something like another 8 weeks and a book layout work followed by proof and feedback cycles. But the proof check feedback cycle will ultimately be the driver of the release date, and it will not go to press until John B. and John F. and I are happy with it. To be clear, to all, Enemy Action is their number one project in all categories, so we know where Compass Games is at these days. Then new from Strata Jamata, Poland. Have you ever heard of this? Neither have I. Mokra, 1st September 1939. It's a game that allows you not only to recreate the events of this historic day, but also to check different hypothetical scenarios. Players decide about their forces' movement, and they organize attacks or defense. Both sides enjoy certain advantages. Germans have a large number of motorized units and strong air force. Poles need to make use of wooden terrain and an element of surprise, as Germans haven't expected to encounter such a large cavalry formation in their way. Players use basic rules of Great Battles of Small Units system. A few special rules were added to represent specific elements of that battle, like, for example, an armored train or German motorized infantry. Costs you about $18 from Noble Knight Games. And says, note, important, game doesn't include a deck of cards, which players need to supply themselves. So if you plan on getting this game, pick up a deck of cards while you're at it. Then new from High Flying Dice Games, Christmas in Hell. And no, they're not talking about what my Christmas will be because I'm broke. They're talking about a solitaire game on the final days of the Battle of Ortona, fought from December 22nd to the 28th in 43. The battle for this small port city on the Italian Adriatic coast was waged by the remnants of some German Fallschirmjäger battalions and two regiments of Canadian troops. It was among the most ferocious and insane city fights on the Italian front during World War II. Cost you $15. Mounted counters cost you another $5. I saw an interesting article on the grogheads.com site on how to apply doctrinal planning processes to wargaming. You ever seen like a kind of a map with a grid superimposed on it in plastic that the commander or leader might carry around? This is kind of what they're talking about, and how this applies to planning. But they give an example using a modified version of the U.S. Army process and Flashpoint Campaign's Red Storm. So take a look at that. That's interesting. Then I also noticed not too long ago, remember Don Pauly I talked about a while back of Enterprise Games? His website was not much of a website. He's changed that recently, and this website is a full-fledged, updated, functional, aesthetically enticing website. So give that a look or visit if you haven't done so, or even if you have. He's got a lot of stuff that is out of print for a fair price, and as I've said in the past, you get him on the phone or shoot him an email. See if he'll cut you a deal on shipping or knock $5 off of an order based on what you are getting. He's done so in the past. I don't see why he wouldn't in the future. And I would encourage you to also tell him that you were sent by the Hexes and Soldiers podcast and see what he thinks of that. I've talked to him in the past and told him that I've given him a little bit of publicity. Board Game Geek War Game Designer of the Month, drum roll, is Masahiro Yamazaki. And I'm happy for Masahiro Yamazaki. I don't know what being Board Game Geek War Game Designer of the Month entails or what the criteria is to become the Designer of the Month. Nevertheless, Masahiro Yamazaki is the Board Game Geek War Game Designer of the Month. This guy was born in Osaka, Japan in '67. Started playing war games when he was 14 years old with John Hill's squad leader. Man after my own heart. The first war game Yamazaki-san designed was Fall Barbarossa, and published by Hobby Japan in an issue of Tactics magazine in '89, revised of course in 6 angles as they are wont to do. Magazine number 15. Mr. Yamazaki probably is best known for, I would say, Red Star Rising, the war in Russia. He also did a Stalingrad Pocket, first edition, and he's published about 24 war games since. And he's also published 2 books on military history, so quite the prolific designer and author. Legion War Games wants to know why their pre-order numbers are so low. Well, you got me. I don't know, guys. And they want to know what they can do. So any suggestions you have, shoot them an email. That would be Legion War Games. Want to know why their pre-order numbers are so low. I'll leave it at that. Mark Walker of Lock and Load Games. Rumors abound. He's starting a new company, another company. Something's going on. Mark Walker is restless. That is Lock and Load Games, so keep your ears open for that. Decision Games, jettisoning some P500 titles, cleaning house a little bit. I don't think there's anything to get your panties in a bunch about with that. But also got something in the mail that reminds me from them. I didn't know this thing existed, so I was thrilled to get it. Didn't ask for it, didn't pay for it, but received it. And this would be the Dispatches from Decision Games newsletter, I guess you would call it. Number 27, Fall 2014. If you guys don't have this, contact Decision Games. Tell them you want a Dispatches from Decision Games newsletter, and see what you think of it. It's like a newspaper, folded in half. I've got an article in here about Vladimir Putin as warlord. Not sure how I feel about that. I read it. Obviously, tons of things that you can order. In-house mag commemorating World War I. That was 100 years ago, so some related stuff there. Stuff that's now available. Again, more stuff you can order. Basically, it's a way of saying, "Hey, here, order some stuff." So, but still, it was neat to get. And if you don't have it or are curious, contact them and tell them you're interested in this thing. I didn't even know it existed until I got it. I had contacted a while back a number of game companies, probably half a dozen or more, letting them know that, hey, you have yet another format from which to reach people if you so desire. Contact me and let me know, and I'll drop some news for you guys. Only got contacted by a couple of people by way of reply, but also let them know, um, hey, I'm interested in some comp games that I would be willing to play and review, talk about. You know, somehow this is happening. Marco Wargamer is probably coming home to 15 to 20 games a day. So anybody out there, publisher-wise, game companies, you want somebody to review a game and talk about it in depth at length on this show, well, that would be me, and I would be glad to do so. So there is that. What else? Bitter Woods Designer Edition is now out. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I guess I don't feel much about it. This would be technically your fifth edition of Bitter Woods, and I don't know. If you don't like this, then stick around for the sixth edition. That brings us to the meat of the matter. And no top 10 list this week. I just didn't have time, and you would think after 3 weeks I would have. But let me tell you, I've got a lot of stuff on the burner, and it's probably a fire hazard. I've got so much stuff on the burner, but trying to knock some of it out. So no top 10 list. As far as the meat of the matter goes, or the situation room, I talked a while ago about ASL, and if you were considering getting into it, why you should, how to do so, what do you need. Well, I thought I would look at kind of the same format for those of you just getting into it, having made the leap, relatively new to the whole ASL thing. Now that you've made the leap, what next? What do you need? What can you live without? That's what I'm going to focus on in this episode. And for those of you that can't stand ASL or think it's overrated, well, I apologize. But it is probably the greatest game on earth. And that's where the bulk of this show is going to head. So, that said, I'll kick it off with some ASL. So, what I'll do is, if you guys get a pen and paper, you can take down what my recommendations are. But I'll start through the core modules and then go through all the actual official M&P Avalon Hill stuff. Make my way to some third party stuff. Then we'll call it a day. But I'm assuming you already have, since you've made the leap, and congratulations, by the way. I'm assuming you already have Beyond Valor. And when it comes to that, I would recommend the newest edition, which has the unmounted map boards, because a lot of the later stuff is not going to have mounted map boards, and then you're going to be stuck with some maps mounted, some maps not. There are probably some of you who are partial to mounted map boards. Well, you're going to have to get over it. These cardstock boards are just fine. Once you get used to the idea, you'll be just fine as well. I'm going to assume also that you have some ASL starter kits. That is fine. Just briefly, when it comes to those, obviously starter kit 1, 2, and 3, by all means pick them up, or you may have already done so. ASL Starter Kit Expansion Pack 1, you don't need it. That is the one that has a yellowish cover with a silhouette of a guy in a machine gun. You don't need that. In fact, you don't want it. The other ASL Starter Kit Bonus Pack, Beyond the Beaches, sure, pick that up if you want. It's not needed. You can live without it. What does that leave? We got some Solitaire ASL. Probably sounds enticing. But if you're somewhat new to this, it's probably just going to confuse you more than anything. And don't let that fool you. ASL can be played solitaire without this. You don't need it. You can live without it. So don't write that down. Yanks, write that down. You're going to want Yanks. And I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I think there is going to be a reprint of Yanks. Not positive on that. I assume there will be. And obviously, I'm not sure when. That brings us to Partisan. You can live without this. West of Alameen. It's hard to say. I would say pick it up, but again, you're going to be stuck with some mounted map boards. I have it. Don't regret it. For King and Country, do you need that? Well, again, it depends. It's got a lot of stuff from West of Alameen, but not everything. For King and Country, it's going to have the non-mounted map boards, the cardstock boards. I also read somewhere that there's some slight issue with the color on the counters or something. I don't know what I'm talking about. But there was some slight issue with this. Um, not saying this to cause you to stray away from it. Do your own research. But if you want the British, you're going to have to get one of these, and I guess it's up to you at the end of the day to decide which. Yeah, I'll leave that up to you. The Last Hurrah, you can live without this. Doom Battalions, unless you're diehard into nations that were on the periphery of the war, Hungary, Romania, things like that. Unless this stuff interests you to no end, you could probably live without Doom Battalions. But there is a catch. Let me just stop real quick. M&P is not, they're not dumb, to put it nicely. They know what they're doing. And as things get released, such as action packs, which I'll get to briefly, they're going to have certain scenarios that come out that are going to require map boards from some of these things, and you may not have them, which means you won't be able to play them. So there's that. If you're a completist and a purist, you want to get all of it. Obviously, most people aren't going to have the money to do so, but bear that in mind. You know, some of this stuff, in order to play some of these scenarios that are coming out, have come out, will be coming out, they're going to require you to play on map boards that you may not have. Now, that said, you don't necessarily need a module to obtain the map boards. You go to M&P, you can buy map boards individually. You go to eBay, you can buy map boards individually. So that solves that. What else? Armies of Oblivion. Again, unless you're diehard into these peripheral nations that fought, I don't know that you need it. Streets of Fire. This is a specialized deluxe ASL module. It's deluxe in so much it has some vehicle unit cards that might interest you if you plan on playing this stuff for a while and get hardcore into it. But also, it has map boards which are mounted, but the hex sizes are bigger. They're double, if not bigger, than your typical hex size. And this may or may not appeal to you, but when it comes to stacking, it can get pretty congested. So this helps facilitate a minimum of stacking, which aids in quick reference when it comes to looking at what you have in a hex. You know, again, I'll leave that up to you. I have it. I'm not. I don't regret owning it. Red Barricades, historical module. This would be some Stalingrad action. Do you need it? Yes. You need red barricades in your life. You might think you don't. You may not be a fan of the Eastern Front, but you need some red barricades in your life. You'll be glad you did it. You'll thank me later on. The only reason I would allow you not to get it is because you bought Valor of the Guards instead. Now, the difference between the Valor of the Guards and red barricades, and I've talked about this in the past, is scale. Valor of the Guards tends to portray a bigger section of Stalingrad, which I like. Again, I own both of these. Red Barricades tends to put more of a microscope effect on Stalingrad. I guess it just depends on your own fancy. But again, you know, I'm going to say you need red barricades in your life. That brings us to Festung Budapest. This thing is beautiful, but you can live without it. It is gigantic, not for the faint of heart. The map is huge, and it is a specialized historical module that deals with action in a late war Budapest, Hungary. Do you need it in your life? No. But again, look at it for yourself. It's pretty attractive. That brings us to Code of Bushido, and had I done this show before Rising Sun, I would have said, by all means, you need Code of Bushido in your life. Instead, I will now say, you need Rising Sun in your life. I don't care if you don't like the Pacific Theater, you will one day. You're going to want this. Rising Sun has everything you need to play the Japanese, and it also has an old module, Gung Ho, which is the United States Marine Corps, and it also has the Chinese. So Can't go wrong with Rising Sun. Add that to your list. That is a must-have. In fact, I would probably pick that up um, soon because, like everything great ASL MMP, it's going to go out of print and it's still in print. So grab that, add that to your list. That brings us to Hollow Legions. This would include the Italians. I don't know. Are you a big fan of spaghetti and The Godfather? Actually, that has nothing to do with this, but if you're a big fan of the Italians, well, then I guess you need it. Otherwise, don't mess with it. Croix de Guerre, the French. Does anybody own this? I don't know. Even diehard ASL people, I don't know that all of them own the French. No offense if you are French, but otherwise you don't need this. Hedro Hell, again, another deluxe module with oversized hexes. Um, if you like dessert after you eat, then you're going to want Streets of Fire or Hedro Hell. If you're trying to stay lean and healthy, again, maybe you could live without these, but look at them for yourself. They're pretty interesting. Conf Group Piper 1 and 2. Okay, here's the deal with Conf Group Piper. I'm a big fan of Mr. Piper. I have a problem with the maps, and this is going to sound stupid, but I'm sorry that most of this stuff takes place, if not all of it, in the winter with snow, and it's there's nothing. The maps look like they almost look like something from the Pacific Theater. I don't know. The maps I can't get past them, so I never picked these things up. But for the diehard Joachim Piper fans out there and Battle of the Bulge, yeah, I guess you need it. Otherwise, leave it alone. That brings us to Pegasus Bridge, another historical module. You don't need this thing. I wouldn't mess with it. A bridge too far, historical module. Put this on your list. Yes, you want this. It's expensive. It's out of print, but it is a Grail module as far as collecting and playing when it comes to ASL. I have a copy, and I'm very proud to own that. You need this, so add that to your list. Operation Veritable, historical module. You don't need this. What else? Gung Ho I already talked about because that is, if you pick up Rising Sun, that's in there. ASL Journal 2, if you want a cheap historical module, affordable price, pick up Journal 2. That has Kakazu Ridge, which is a Pacific Theater historical module. Journal 6 that's an ASL journal, which they're out of print except for ASL Journal 2. There was a rerun, a reprint done of these, so these Journal 2s can be had at an affordable price. The rest of them are still out of print. Journal 6, it's expensive. I'd recommend it, but you're going to pay a lot, and for what it is, I don't know. Put your money towards Rising Sun or the British. What else? Blood Reef Tarawa. It's not a print, expensive historical module that deals with the Pacific Theater. If you're a die-hard Pacific Theater fan, you need this. Otherwise, don't mess with it. Operation Watchtower. I think you could live without that. What else? Journal number 9 has a historical module, Suicide Creek. Might be able to get this at an affordable price, but otherwise you could live without it. What else? Special Ops number 3 has Hell's Corner, another historical module for ASL that could probably be had at an affordable price. Again, otherwise, if you only have a limited amount of disposable income, I'm going to direct you time and time again to Rising Sun or the British or Red Barricades or A Bridge Too Far. That leaves the Winter Offensive bonus packs. What are they up to now? Let's see. I've lost count, but there are a number of these. What you get is a couple ASL map boards, some scenarios. Um, it's up to you. If you want something that is relatively affordable, maybe pick a couple of these up. I think they're probably all out of print now. Otherwise, you could live without them. Then you have a ton of action packs. You've got Action Pack 1 and 2. Don't mess with these. For some reason, they're way too expensive. Action Pack 3. What a GI's dozen is, I'm not sure. Moving right along. Action Pack 4, Normandy. Are you a fan of the Normandy invasion in 44 with hedgerows? then pick this up, Action Pack 4. And what these action packs are is similar to the Winter Offensive bonus packs. You get some scenarios and some map boards, and these would be the card stock map boards. Pick the Action Pack 4 up. Action Pack 5, that's strictly East Front stuff. So unless you're a diehard East Front fan, leave that alone. Otherwise, grab that up. Action Pack 6, A Decade of War. This is kind of interesting. It covers a whole 10-year period of war, and not just World War II stuff. So if that interests you, take a look at that. What does that leave? Action Pack 7. That escapes me offhand what that entails. Action Pack 8, Roads Through Rome. That's some Italy stuff, so I'll leave it up to you. Um, then you have some strictly scenario packs. Out of the Bunker. What else? Best of Friends. There's so many of these scenario packs. If you want new scenarios and you run out of scenarios, you've played them until they're dog-eared and ragged, these scenario packs are a cheap way to grab some new scenarios. Also, another way to grab some cheap ASL scenarios, if you can get a hold of some old copies of the General Magazine, I think there's a few ASL scenarios in there after a certain date. Also, Fire and Movement as well as Wargamer has been known to have some ASL scenarios, and you can pick these magazines up off of eBay fairly cheaply, but a lot of that stuff. And then that brings us to some third-party stuff, and for the love of God, it really is endless when it comes to the amount of this stuff. And personally, I have barely stuck a toe into the waters of this third party stuff. The two things that I've pulled out of the waters, third party waters, is Le Franc Terrier, this French third party company. Their Conf Group Chrome game, which is unbelievably beautiful to look at and behold, attractive. Just to be able to touch it is an experience, and not to mention the conflict that it is depicting. Also, Arnhem the Third Bridge, you might pick that up if you can't afford a bridge too far. There's some issues with the placement of buildings and the line of sight, but if you're careful and smart and patient, you can overcome these and have a hell of a time. That leaves some other third-party stuff, and what I have done is gone to Desperation Morale's site, and I'm going to go through some of the things that he recommends, and I trust him because he is an avid ASL gamer and familiar with third-party stuff. And even for you guys that have been in ASL, the ASL game for a while, and have been reluctant to grab up some third-party stuff but need some new things, well, stick around and listen. Raleigh Point Volume 8, Sons of the Rising Sun by Sherry Enterprises. I also Schwerpunkt. This came out in 2013. Recommend that. Also, the Friendly Fire Pack 8, which is a scenario pack, came out in 2013. We've also got Raleigh Point Volume 7, Sherry Enterprises or Schwerpunkt. Friendly Fire Pack 7. What else? Yeah, he also mentions the Conf Group Shearer Shield of Cholm by Le Franc Terrier, which I already mentioned. Friendly Fire Pack 6. Schwerpunkt Volume 15. Swedish Volunteers. I've looked at this thing. It's pretty interesting. It deals with the Swedish, obviously, number of scenarios in that. If you can find it now, it's out of, obviously, it's out of print. And fetches a pretty penny, as they say, but hey, if you want to delve into the Swedish experience within World War II, then you need it. Friendly Fire Pack 5, Friendly Fire Pack 4, Total Axis Pack 1, Eastern Front Firestorm by Critical Hit. And you got to be careful with Critical Hit. They've got a ton of stuff, and I don't know how well play tested their stuff is. It's curious as to how they're able to pump out so much product. That makes me wonder at the quality of it. Not to say that it isn't a quality stuff, but when you're pumping that much stuff out, I don't know. Schwerpunkt Volume 13, Friendly Fire Packs 2 and 3. What else does that leave? Still some more stuff. You've got Break Contact, Aussie Tournament Pack, another Scenario Pack, Friendly Fire Pack 1, Hero Packs 3, Jungle Heroes from Critical Hit, Schwerpunkt Volume 10. Heat of Battle's got Onslaught to Orsha, came out in 2002, looks pretty interesting. Hero Packs 1, Hurtgen Hell to Bulge Nightmare by Critical Hit, Schwerpunkt Volume 7. Schwerpunkt Volume 4, Hell on Wheels Battle Pack. This is by Bounding Fire Productions. Aussie 98 Pack by Critical Hit. Schwerpunkt Volume 3. What else? Dispatches from the Bunker. Aussie ASL 97 Pack from Critical Hit. Schwerpunkt Volume 1. ASL 96 Pack. Windy City Wargamer Color Scenario Pack from Windy City Wargamers, came out in 96. So that's it. Plenty of stuff, and that is barely the tip of the iceberg when it comes to third-party product. But as far as recommendations, and again, I don't have a lot of familiarity with third-party stuff. I take Desperation Morale's word for it. Mark Pitcavage. His recommendations are good enough for me and should be for you. So if you've been holding out on third-party stuff or are curious, give that stuff a whirl. And to reiterate, as far as a list of things for those of you who are still relatively new and have already made the leap, your list should contain something of the British by way of West of Alamein or for King and Country. Remember, West of Alamein is the older version with the mounted map boards. For King and Country does not include everything that West of Alamein includes, but it does get you your British and the cardstock map boards, which will go nicely with everything else, which seems to be cardstock. If you are in a mood to splurge and spend a lot of money on a historical module, things out of print, sometimes hard to find. A bridge too far is what you want. Also red barricades, but if that seems to be a little too expensive, you might be able to live with Valor of the Guards, which has just recently gone out of print. Sorry about that. What else? You got a couple of possibilities: Streets of Fire and or Hedgerow Hell for deluxe ASL with the bigger hexes but mounted map boards. That's just personal preference. Could live without it. So you should also have Rising Sun on there, if I didn't already mention that in this recap. That is a must-have. And as far as anything else, it's pretty much up to you. So Rising Sun, run out and buy that right away. I think it's still in print. Do it before it goes out of print. For King and Country, grab that up. And then as far as stuff that's out of print, a Bridge Too Far and or Red Barricades. And anything else is pretty much up to you. And there is a ton of stuff out there, as you probably realize. But there's just a few pointers for you, and probably not necessarily an end-all be-all, but some arrows to point you in the right direction. So that about does it for this episode. And I'm not sure when I'll be hearing from you guys again, but I've got some historical episodes that I need to get off my chest. One being Waterloo. Mr. Anthony Salvaggio has been patiently waiting for his Waterloo episode, and I have not forgotten. What else? I will be updating and adding variants to a platoon leader as well as cold combat. So if you guys are playing that or curious, be checking the individual entries on Board Game Geek. Also keep an eye out for a possible H&S Games focused website, probably something on the cheap through Facebook, something along those lines, and start banging out new scenarios, a new module, expansion pack for Platoon Leader that'll introduce vehicles and go from there. So that's it for Hexes and Soldiers episode 38. Glad I was able to hang out with you guys for a little while yet again, and look forward to seeing you next time. So thanks for listening, and keep gaming.